Daniel Hardy, work at Cabio Partners. I'm the head of our digital management accounting team.
So, Dan, I want to talk to you about, you've been on accounting for a really long time now, and I've obviously spoken to heaps of firms over the time, and something that I think keeps coming back to me is like why it's so hard to implement Microsoft Power BI. Now, I've got a few reasons why I think, but just what's your gut feel on why it's difficult for firms to implement Microsoft Power BI?
So implementing Microsoft Power BI without Atani would be, I would imagine, near on impossible. I wouldn't know where to start. I think accountants really don't have that technical and technological understanding of what it is and how you would pull your client zero data out of Xero into a warehouse, then into a data. We just don't have that knowledge and that skill set.
So can I talk to you? I'm going to throw a few in the too hard basket. I'm going to throw some of the things that I've seen and could you just make your comment? So I want to first bring up resources. So the difference between somebody just coming to Atani and saying, yep, we're going to sign up for Atani, and you yourself, you're an associate director,
Yep.
and you're going to go, I'm going to do Atani. Talk to us through how feasible that is.
Depends. It probably depends on how you run yourself and run your team and how much you're already growing your existing client base at the moment. It depends how much time you have. If you've got the time to invest into it upfront and learn how to, learning Atani is not difficult. Learning how to program effectively in Power BI is complex, and learning how the data model works and the relationships between the data works and, fixing errors and issues that arise as you're trying to do things, that is extremely complex and very, very hard to learn. It's not to say you can't, you could learn it and you could become an expert in it, and people have, but it just depends if that's where you want to be spending your time. If you're already in a role, so you're a director in an accounting firm and you've got, clients that you're looking after and managing and being the relationship for, it's going to be very difficult for you to find the time that's required to become an expert in Power BI.
So it's a bit of a balancing act with you. Your background is that you did do the work, but now you don't do the work, but you understand how it works, and so that you can direct the team. And how much more beneficial is that?
I think that's almost essential to have someone that has grasped at least the basics of Power BI, DAX, and the data model. Without understanding the basics of how it comes together, I think you're going to throw money at something and burn a lot of money just throwing resources at it and throwing subscription costs at it. Got to have at least someone in the firm that really understands it and will be able to drive it.
What about client base? How important is a client base to go down a path like this? Do you need a size? Obviously we can't have individual tax return payers here, but do we need to have sort of the larger size businesses that really take this by the horn and appreciate it more?
Yes and no. I think there's value in the smaller clients as well. And you need to be conscious of, when you're building reports for clients, of how big they are. And you also need to be conscious of how much value you can provide a client that is a smaller client. So, what data is in their Xero file that is of value to them, all right? And therefore, how much can you charge a small client, all right? And then when you get into your bigger clients that are your, multi-entity consolidated groups, that's certainly where you're going to see more value on both sides of the equation. Clients are going to really appreciate it, all right, because they're able to do things that they've not been able to do before. Equally, they're going to be willing to pay for it.
So going back to the whole of this question, why is it so hard for firms to implement? We've touched on resources, like having people that actually help you do the work. We've talked about the client base, and there's obviously certain types of clients that you can do certain things with,
Yep.
and certain clients that are not such appropriate to fit with the bigger projects because they're not willing to pay for it. What about the fact that that accountants privy to their website, what their website actually says. I mean, they don't traditionally have this advisory skill set. So when they get such a beast, such a flexible beast like this, is there a lack of vision here on where to drive it?
Look, I think that can be part of it. It certainly could be. It depends on the firm. It depends on the person. Yeah, lack of vision, lack of understanding as well. Like, it probably goes back to that first point. Like, if you don't understand the data and where it comes from and what you can do with it, and then equally you don't understand the visualizations even and know how you can represent that data, then you're going to struggle. But, so it's a combination of different things.
Let's keep moving forward. So I just want to touch on why you need Atani, because like when I run into firms that have very little background on data analytics and Power BI, the most common question they either ask me directly or think is, why wouldn't we just use Microsoft Power BI alone? Why do we need Atani?
I think Atani just helps make it a more of a turnkey solution. It's more of a turnkey solution to the data, accessing the data and connecting to the data. And then obviously the data model that sits over the top. So it provides, I guess, the turnkey abilities there, and it gives you a starting point. All right. It gives you the starting point via the templates. All right. Without the starting point, in fact, the templates provide a lot of the learning when you're doing that initial training as to what is actually possible here to create for a client.
Because I mean, one of my key points on that is that, irrelevant of Atani, you've got to pay somebody to get data into Power BI. Power BI just doesn't just, you don't just point at a certain data source and say, I need that in here. Like, somebody has to be paid to transition that data, whether it's Atani or anybody. So, I mean, you can't get away from that.
No.
All right. Can we switch to pricing? I want to talk to you about pricing of data analytics inside an accounting firm, and how you go about it on a recurring front, how you go about it with management financial data versus operational data, and project versus recurring. Could you just make some comments on how what you've learned over your past?
Yes, it's probably not, I'd say it's not our strong point, but it's probably something that we've really taken Atani and Power BI and utilized it as our replacement or as our reporting function, if you like. So I won't sit here and go, we're charging a fortune to lots of people to provide them with Power BI reports. I actually more look at it as a real selling tool for us. And it is the service offering that has really helped us land some of the biggest clients that we have in the firm. So can I sit here and go, oh, we charge this much per month to produce a Power BI report for this client? Not really. Can I tell you that having the ability to produce consolidated reports and reports that allow a multi-entity business with, say, 10 different entities, the ability to compare data across all those entities has landed us, clients worth $100,000 a year to the firm? Yeah, we have been able to do that. As a firm, you need to build your own starting point, your own template, right? And, and I'm not charging clients to roll out a template to them. I'll build it once, we tweak it and customize it for that client to a degree, but nothing crazy. And then we roll that out. Okay. And that's what you get as part of being a reasonable sized client of Cavio.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So there's a few different ways of looking at it, in a sense that, we might not be charging every client a fee to be on Atani, but they're certainly being charged a fee to be part of Cavio Digital. And that is part of our service offer.
Yeah. So it's intertwined inside the actual overall fee that you're charging for your services. That's hard to sort of grab the actual margin that you're getting from it, but that there's value there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So are you trying to suggest that you've been most successful in the consolidated space on winning business, or has it also been sort of the operational data that's helped as well, the operational connectors?
It has not been the operational data for us at the moment. That's probably been a space that we haven't done as much in that we would like to have done in, and we need to do more. But also, we still need to sort out our consolidated and financial data and financial reporting for people as well.
Yeah.
Like, I think what we haven't done is play to the strengths of what Power BI is, and that's, I was going to give someone advice around, what to build in Atani. It would be play to the strengths of what the system of what Power BI, I should say, is there to provide. And it's data visualization. It's not tables upon tables upon tables of data.
Mm-hmm. Could you just talk about your journey? Because you've spoken to me like off the record previously about, you build out a management report deck, and then, like 3 or 4 months later, you've used it with meetings and you're like, this is just crap, and you've gone back to the drawing board and you've evolved into like storytelling and more visuals rather than tables. Could you just touch on that?
Yep, absolutely. So I guess, it probably comes back to playing to the strengths of what Power BI. I think we have probably built our initial set of reports around what clients are used to seeing, right? What clients are comfortable with, which is P&L and a balance sheet, and then maybe some visualizations around that, when really we actually need to be more reinventing what a client should look at when they look at their financial reports. Because the honest reality is, you can put a P&L and a balance sheet in front of most clients, and the only people in the room that understand them is the accountant anyhow. Right? And then when you look at them in a meeting, there's a handful of numbers that you actually look at. You look at revenue, and you want to look at the trends in those numbers. You look at profit and the trends in those numbers. And then you look at your variances to your budget or your variance to last year. So what we want our reports to now do, not there yet, but is really just skip the whole profit and loss in the balance sheet and just show people what it is you'd be talking about if you were looking at a P&L and a balance sheet anyhow, because you don't talk about everything, right? You don't sit there and go, look at all our hire purchase agreements. We made another monthly payment. Like we paid down a whole monthly payment on 30 HPs this month. Well done. But the reality is, like, if you are pulling your balance sheet out of zero into a balance sheet in Atani, your hire purchase agreements are going to take up half the page in a business that has, those kind of liabilities. So why produce a report that shows something that is so meaningless to the client and show them, highlight the data and the information that you're actually going to talk about in the meeting and get value out of everybody's time?
How would you advise firms that are concerned that if they lost their Power BI person, they'd be in trouble?
You will be in trouble temporarily. Like, you will. That's just reality. You're not going to have a backup person because they're not a cheap resource to have, whether they're here in Australia or they're in the Philippines or wherever in the world. Doesn't matter. The cost of those resources is becoming more expensive, but you'll find someone else, just as you always do for every role, just another role in a business. And there's lots of data visualization people out there, and there's going to be even out there, it's like anything negative that happens in your life or in your, business world, you can look at it positive or negative. So try and look at it as a positive. If you've got someone young in your firm that you can afford to have, fill the hole for a month, and they use it as a learning experience to understand Tani and Power BI better, then do that. If you need to just tell your clients for a month or two, sorry, like, our reporting function is down for...
Talk to me about the future of operational reporting in firms, like this virtual CFO movement, and how important, as more of these SME businesses are moving to cloud-based add-ons that sit around Xeros and QuickBooks and MyObs, how important do you think the role of a virtual CFO with operational data is going to become?
I think it'll be extremely important over the next 5 years. It'll be what I think probably 5 years ago, we thought it was going to be really important in 5 years' time. And I still think there's a way to go. You know, I look at our clients, I go, well, we're not really doing any operational reporting for people when we need to be. And then I look at what some other firms are doing around forecasting and how it can all actually come together. You know, how do you forecast a profit and loss and therefore a three-way balance sheet cash flow if you don't have some insight into their operational data? You're just pulling numbers out your ass. Like, you really are. People are just, you know, what do you think your sales are going to be in next month? And the business might know, all right? The business owner will probably have their finger on that. What do you think your income's going to be in 12 months' time? Or in 3 months' time? They're going to be guessing. But if you can get into the operational data and actually see what is in the pipeline, and look at the client we work with does the retaining walls, all right? We could actually use their operational data and we'd be actually able to see what they have built up in jobs that they have won that they have not yet started, all right? And we would be able to see what their forecast revenue should be for at least the next quarter, because they'd typically be carrying at least a quarter of revenue in jobs that they haven't started yet.
So what's the hold up? Is it that you are just too busy to transition at this point in time? Like, speaking as a whole, accounting firms, I mean, you just got so much work on the go that you haven't been able to work on it? Or is it the fact that businesses are still, that transition to the cloud operationally is, you know, obviously we're at a higher percentage now with Xero, like financial data, but that movement to operational is still slow and lagging behind where there's.
It's probably multi-facet, I guess. Yes, we're super busy just getting on board new clients into, you know, our team, which takes up heaps of my time. Existing client work takes up a lot of my time. Then, yep, not as many businesses as you think are on a cloud operational system. Still a lot out there that are not. And then, to be honest, I think one of the biggest killers is the quality of the data in operational systems. I think those that I have connected to, I quite quickly look at and go, your data here is all over the place. You're not using the system correctly. You know, they're all limiting factors in terms of how much you're going to be able to do in that space.
Yep, that makes sense.
But having said that, by being able to connect to those systems and show a client that, right? For example, an engineering firm that we're about to connect to their Workflow Max, I can guarantee that it's going to drive improvement to their data. All right. So, you know, if you put a report in front of a manager or even an employee that tells them your timesheets aren't in for the last month, you know, eventually that's going to drive people to improve that.
Yeah.
We can't see where our business is going or what our performance is doing operationally if the data's not in there. So I think there's good value there for clients to improve their data by having it presented visually in front of them that the data's not good enough.
Could you talk to me about what do you think the difference is between Microsoft Power BI / Atani and Spotlight, Futurely, Fathom? What's the difference? Where do they both sit in the market?
Spotlight, I can really only speak into Spotlight, having used it. Look, they've got their place to play in the market for some people, right? That aren't willing to make the investment in both time and money into something like Atani or Power BI. They're very easy to use. They're very templated, but you cannot customize in any way, shape or form what the end result gets. And they're probably more traditional and they're probably more comfortable for a client. Client can get their PDF of their report out really easily, and here it is, and we've done no work and we've done no analysis. All right, that's what you can get out of Spotlight. That's fine. And you can also do, forecasting and consolidated forecasting where, I'm still unsure if that's got a space in Power BI or Atani, but maybe it does. So yeah, that's.
So basically you're saying it comes down to flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. You can build, as long as the data's there, you can build whatever you want.
Mhm.
All right. Client says, I want to see, we've had this example. I just want to see a report that tells me all my overheads that are over budget so that I can delegate them to specific people that are responsible for those divisions and those departments, and they can know that they are over budget, and they can watch it and see how much they're over budget by, and then, take action accordingly. You can't do that in Spotlight reporting. You'd have to give them their entire profit and loss. You'd have to take a screen grab of those line items, which is horrible. All right. So yeah, customization, ability to make different reports for different purposes, and then different data sources, obviously.
Last question. Why would you consider Power BI in your accounting firm? Like, why would people who are sort of very foreign to it still, why is it, is this something that you see is getting bigger and bigger and bigger?
I guess, how else are you going to do it? I mean, I don't know another way. I mean, there's other data visualization tools, but, other than dumping your data into Excel and creating graphs and visualizations in Excel, which is going to be pretty time consuming, I don't see how else you're going to create the exact look and feel of reports that you want to be able to present both internally and to clients. I haven't seen another solution. So